What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to discuss a pretty interesting topic. We've talked a lot about a potential Superman game, Rocksteady, whether or not they actually are, whether or not anybody, any development studio that's, I guess, owned or contracted in some way with Warner Bros., whether or not they're making a Superman game. There's a lot of problems that can arise from it. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that can make it very, very difficult to make. Same thing with a Flash game, which I talked about in 5 superhero games. I had a video, 5 superhero games we need, in addition to, I guess you could say, the new Arkham game. That definitely is still happening. And in that video, we talked about some games that I think could be possible in the future, but some also heroes and ideas with those heroes that would make it very, very difficult to make them a game. Now, if you guys like this video, make sure you guys are actually liking it. Make sure you guys are supporting it. I do want to go into more specifics. I want to have videos breaking down each of these characters, Superman and Flash. I was originally going to make a video talking about like 5 ways or 5 reasons why a Superman game is so hard. That is a video idea I do want to do in the future. So if you guys like this kind of video, I will do that one. Next, I could do the same thing with Flash. Because here at the end of the line, or at the end of the day, it is something that I've been talking about actually for quite some time. I actually believe I talked about this kind of stuff back when Rocksteady was done with Arkham Knight, back when the rumors first started hitting that, like, are they making a Superman game? And they can deny it all they want, but, and this, I get it. This isn't necessarily a video on if they are or are not making a Superman or Flash game. At the end of the day, these two characters are insanely difficult, and I completely understand why. Nobody has, firstly, made one in a very long time, and secondly, why there haven't been any good ones in almost ever. Actually, I believe ever for either of these superheroes. Batman was kind of that first breakthrough one. So here's the reasons why, and it's not necessarily a list. I don't even have them numbered. I don't even have a set amount of numbers. But the first thing that both, and the reason I put these two together is they're both very, very similar. The first problem is traversal. It's not the first and last thing that's a problem with these two, but it's the biggest thing, I think, in the world to both these characters. It does not help that Warner Bros. Has said you need to make this game, and we're only talking about Superman in this case, but if you want to make a Superman game for us, it needs to be in the Arkham engine. That's not a very good idea. Clearly, it doesn't work. We've heard from leaks that people have tried, the developers have tried, and they just have not been able to have it work. So clearly that's an issue, and why would it be an issue? Well, these two travel very, very fast, whether it be Superman flying or Flash running, which is, I guess, the thing you would probably imagine would get them around a superhero game the most. It's the biggest problem. How do you make a world? And to be honest, right now, I don't even necessarily have the greatest idea. That's why I love hearing your suggestions. That's why I love making more of these kind of videos to try to discuss them out, basically. But moving around the world, in my opinion, is the biggest thing that makes these two nearly impossible to make a good game. Now, has it been done? Yes, there's that Japanese game a few months ago, or like into the second half of 2019, made the rounds on YouTube that, like, this is how you do a superhero game or Superman game, and it did it really, really well. I'm going to be using that kind of as in future videos of how to make a Superman game. I do want to use that video to help us, but traversal is a really tough thing because you have to imagine the scope of the world. How big is this open world we're using or we're going to be playing in with one of these two characters? Okay, whether it's Flash or Superman, it doesn't matter because they both move extremely, extremely fast. And do you run out of the world's room too quickly? That's a huge, huge thing. And then besides that, can the game engine even keep up with something like that, right? It's hard. You have to imagine the scope and you have to imagine how the game runs. I mean, you see Batman soaring, but I guess in all retrospect, he's not going all that fast. Even with the Batmobile, the whole world is rendered, and it's a big world, and the Batmobile doesn't move at the speed of sound. It doesn't move extremely quickly. Or you look at Spider-Man. I mean, yeah, he's swinging along, he's flying, and when you're, getting close to buildings and stuff, I mean, you can tell there's speed there, and the game recognizes that, and the engine can work with that, but none of them can move as fast as what we've seen or what we know Superman and Flash can move. So if you're running around the world, how exactly does that work? How fast can you get along the world? Can the game even keep up? Isn't it kind of just like teleporting? Because wouldn't you move so fast you wouldn't actually be able to see the areas around you, right? Is there a map showing you where you... So things like that, yeah, like it's only a couple questions. And yeah, there's only so much you can talk about it because at the end of the day, I don't even know where you would necessarily start with something like that because that's extreme. You have to find a way to shrink everything. And by that, I also mean the characters. And that's another issue, and that goes into the fighting. Now, I think as we go along these, it's going to more or less be about Superman, but Flash is very, very similar. For fighting, again, because they're so fast, how do you exactly like? Can you again have it like Batman? Like imagine Flash or imagine Superman being in like an arena, like like Batman, like in a room that Batman walks into, and he has to discard like 10 thugs. Can you imagine if you just took that character, like a mod, if you took that character out and you put the Flash, would that look right? No, because you'd be like waiting for an attack and he'd be like bouncing around. And he would like, block it and like, karate chop them in the neck and then throw them on the ground. And it's like, is that really, like, how do you even make a fighting process go? And again, like, I get it. I'm kind of restraining it to the Batman Arkham thing. And maybe that's not what it's going to be, but even like Spider-Man is it's not as close as a lot of people will say, but it's pretty darn close to Batman Arkham, right? Especially like when you're in a fight, it feels like Arkham, like you're waiting for the counters, you have combos, you have takedowns, you have your gadgets, basically. Spider-Man has his gadgets that you upgrade and you unlock and all these things, and you have, the kind of Predator mode in a way where you're, swinging around and you can take people out without others noticing, you can swing objects, all of these different, I mean, that's very much, you know what I mean? So even in the way we have it now, Marvel's Avengers is maybe one of the only other examples. We haven't even had that game yet, but that looks very Destiny-like, and it's like that third-person kind of action-y fighting game. So, like, that's a little bit different for sure, but still not like a hack and slash, but it reminds me in ways of what's already been done. And I feel like if you're going to make a Superman and Flash game, it's not going to work like that. It can't work like that. It needs to be something entirely different, something that we honestly haven't seen before. If we're ever going to get a Arkham quality of these two games, again, not where these two games are Arkham, but they are, you think of them as like, wow, these are top dogs in the superhero genre. In order to get that, I feel like they're just going to have to be completely different because, again, traversal, how the world works, fighting, health, especially Superman, how does anybody and even Flash, how does anybody hit him if he's so quick? I mean, are they all supernatural things, right? Do we have to bring in, they're not like street thugs. Do we have to bring them out from like outer space? Do we have to bring them from a different timeline? Are they all like mini bosses? Are they all people like in that universe that we know? And then like, well, how does that get, like that game sounds very, very different. Again, I don't necessarily even know how that works. And then also damage, especially this is more like Superman, but Flash is very powerful as well. How do you, and I guess again, you could argue, well, Batman, maybe you could argue one of his punches would literally knock out almost anybody, and yet for a lot of the thugs, he has to beat them up. Same thing with Spider-Man. I mean, realistically, Spider-Man is one of the more powerful Avengers. If he punches you, he may actually kill you because of how powerful it is. So you could say, well, when he's fighting people, he's like taking it easy on them maybe. But like, all right, well, is that what you're going to say for Superman? Because if Superman punches you, you're gone. Okay, it's over. You're going to either go through a wall or you're going to collapse onto the ground, and you know what I mean? So how do you deal with common street thugs? Are they all like supernatural things? Are they like a generic army like we've seen in so many Marvel movies or like Justice League, for example? How do you do that? How do you deal with how much damage he does? How do you deal with their own health? Oh, and same thing with Flash, by the way, too, is like he's so fast, how do they hit him? Unless they're not humans, unless there's somebody that's more up to his level. But again, that I feel like definitely puts it in the scope of a completely different game. And then, like I said, their own health. I mean, they're pretty powerful. You can't even hurt Superman. Like, does everybody have kryptonite in their weaponry? Like every single person. Because then, like, what's the threat? What am I afraid of? Is there like a city bar of health? Like, is the city under some distress that I need to make sure that I'm caring for it? Otherwise, because if the city dies, then he feels down on himself and then he loses. Like, how does that actually work? So you see all these things. They're minor things. They're not like the biggest things in the world, and I'm sure somebody out there can totally figure it out. And by the way, this is not even everything. I can tell you right now, I have a few other ideas. I'm going to cap it at what I've already said. but I have a couple other things that would make it even harder. And also, I'm sure I'm not even thinking of things that would make it almost impossible. But do you see where I'm coming from? It's kind of difficult. There's a lot to these characters. If we got a game, it would be tremendous. I would love it. I would support it as much as humanly possible. I would help promote it as much as, I would really want to play this game. At the same time, firstly, it just cannot be like what we have of Arkham, and it can't be like any other game that has been influenced by Arkham. Yeah, there's a difference between being influenced and being like a carbon copy. Like, Spider-Man is influenced by it, but it also, again, feels like it in some ways. I want an influence of it. I want, like, that kind of storytelling. I want that more grounded tone. I want that darker tone and more serious. Like, I want all that, but at the same time, I don't think the game can be like it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And besides that, there's a lot of character traits about these people that make it so difficult. And don't throw it like DC Universe. Nobody's ever done this, but I'm interested. DC Universe Online doesn't count. That's just a completely different kind of thing, right? And there's so many differences between what I'm talking about and that. Again, I've never seen anybody bring that up, but in case somebody does, I just wanted to throw it out there. It's tough. I want one of these games, but I think it, honestly, of all the games, and yes, I get every single game is difficult to make. You can come up with a concept for a game and say, how are we going to make this work in the game? Like, how do you even render that? How do you even make that? How do you write that? How do you approach? How does the game actually function? Like, you could say that with any sequence of any game, and obviously they've all been answered in good ways, bad ways. Like, they've worked, they haven't worked. But I just feel like of all the different kinds of games, if you could pitch ideas nonstop of different games you want the industry to produce, I feel like a Superman game and a Flash game are next to impossible. I don't think they are impossible. I just think that they're probably some of the, besides like going into every single building and making them all be completely unique, something like that, something like No Man's Sky, but in GTA, but actually like good in both ways. I think that would be pretty difficult, but that's kind of like an engine thing, right? Like if we fully master how to make an engine where each building in an open world game is fully filled and is completely unique from each other, which I'm sure one day, 20 years down the line, we'll get that, then that's going to be a whole lot easier. But where we stand right now, before I get ahead of myself, where we stand right now in 2020, I don't feel like there's that many games besides these two that are harder to come up with and produce. And again, if anybody could have done it or can do it, I think Rocksteady still is that studio. I know they've said they're not doing it. Again, that's a discussion for a different day. But hopefully we'll get to see one of these two games. Flash, definitely, we're going to get a Superman game before Flash. I 100% believe that. I think both of them, though, fall under the exact same things. They're both extremely similar in the way that they're very difficult to imagine and put together, and I think to actually like fully realize. They're very, very difficult. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think? What are your ideas? What are your reasons why these games are so hard? And again, like, how would you go about doing them? Let me know all that stuff in the comments below. Again, if you guys like this kind of video, please, please, please support it. Please like it. Please share it. All that kind of stuff. Make sure you guys are subscribed, have that bell icon turned on. And if you guys, again, if this video does well, we will continue making more videos like this, maybe breaking them down, Superman, Flash, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.